We're not even 10 seconds into today's video and I've already spent $30,000 on today's lumber. Follow along, I'll tell you guys how much we spent on total on all the lumber because this is the 4th delivery of lumber that we've gotten and lumber prices have went up. Oh, the reason I couldn't grip him is if you can see on his sweater, he has built-in summer slime. So when you grab it, it's just
Nice wood, Sam.
massive.
So you might be wondering why there's a bunch of framing behind us and how we got to this point. I was out of town in Seattle.
And I wasn't able to get the footage of the framing going up because I was up, all symptoms of having the stomach flu. And our videographer was also out of town, so that leaves nobody to film anything. And that's why there's no footage of this. Basically, all the walls went up, all the framing, rough framing is done, so we have a general idea of the layout. We're very happy with the layout. All the windows, all the doorways, everything is kind of framed out. Today, we're actually putting in the ceiling joists.
So for the subfloor, we have to follow a certain nailing schedule that's in our plans. The nailing schedule is different for the edges of the house and in the middle areas of the house.
It's also different by plank too. So on the outside of the plywood edges, it's different nailing schedule than it is in the center of the plywood.
Yeah, so it depends where your supports are, how big your plywood pieces are.
It also depends on what the offset of the floor joists are. So we have 16 on center, I believe.
You have to have a different nailing on those 16-inch on-center floor joists. The other thing is, I don't like squeaky floors. Sam doesn't like squeaky floors. So we're really keen on paying attention to how can we make these floors not squeak. We use something called subfloor adhesive. Put the subfloor adhesive, it's like a glue, on the floor joists before you put the plywood on, and it prevents the squeakiness of the floors.
On top of the adhesive, we also use a special type of nails. They're basically ring nails. I don't know if it's a special type, but it's something that does help the floors from moving and squeaking. It's basically an added step. Outside of that step, there's one final step that I guess there's a lot of controversy on, and we don't know the right way to do it, but it was screwing down the subfloor.
So we decided that we're gonna screw down the subfloor right before we put in the actual flooring in the house. Some people like to do it as you're putting the glue, you put the screws in. Some people like to do it after the glue is dried up and you're about to put the floors down. So we decided that we're gonna do it with the floors.
One of the driving things that made us make that decision is when I talked to the inspector, who's been very strict, to say the least. He said that you should put it right before you put in the subfloor. I don't want any confrontations with the guy, so I think that's what we're gonna do. And maybe you can comment down below telling us what you think is the best practice and what you guys know to be the best practice, because to be honest with you, I don't know which one is the right way. So we're gonna talk about framing, the things we've learned through the framing process that we didn't know prior. This will probably be some tips for you guys to save money, time, energy, have a little bit more knowledge when you're going into a build. Let's talk about our ceiling heights. So our ceiling heights were set at 9 foot. Originally they were drawn at 8 foot, we increased it to 9 feet. Depending on your height limitations in your area and your zoning, we recommend doing 10 or 8. They don't sell 2x4s and 2x6s and 9-footers. So basically they ended up cutting all of these down by a foot. We bought 10-footers and they cut them down. So it's kind of a waste. Yeah, they use that for blocking here and there, so there is a little bit of use to it, but it would have probably been more beneficial to us to get the extra foot of ceiling height that would add value to the home than to drop it down to 9 feet.
So one of the things that we decided to do was, because we had 9-foot ceilings, we decided we want 8-foot headers. So we put all of our doorways and windows at 8 feet. And it's important to have them all at the same level because it creates like a symmetry with your eyes. If your closets are a little bit lower or your windows are a little bit lower than your doorway, then it causes, it just doesn't look good when you walk into a room.
What are the standard heights? Because we did 8 foot, the other standard is 6'8", right?
The other standard is 6'8", which we felt was way too short. It was not a premium looking finish to it. The doors look smaller, so we wanted to go the next level up, do a little bit better than just the standard.
We were going to talk about windows and the problems we faced with windows, but just to give some reference on cost, the extra cost of adding that extra foot and 4 inches to the windows and the doors is very nominal, but it gives you a much more luxurious feel when you walk into a house.
Up here you can see this header. It's a lot bigger than the rest of the wood that you find around the house. The reason they tell you to stand in a doorway during an earthquake is because you have that thing supporting anything that's going to fall down. So that's why it's the safest place. Now this doorway, we're standing right in the entrance of the house. This is a 5-foot wide entrance. We were originally going to put a 5-foot door, but if we shrink that down to 42 inches, which is a standard size, that saves us a lot of money. Instead of building and buying a custom door, we can buy a standard door off the shelf, and it's going to be a lot cheaper, but it's still going to look nice because it's still 42 inches compared to your regular 2'6", 3-foot doorways.
Once you get past the 42-inch mark, we've learned that doors go from, let's say, $1,000 on the nice end of a 42-inch door. If you go to 48, that extra 6 inches is going to cost you another $4,000. Is $4,000 worth it for 6 inches?
I don't think so.
6 inches is 6 inches though, right? I'm in the front bathroom, which is basically assigned to the first bedroom, but it also has access to the main house, so anybody visiting, any guests can use this bathroom. Behind me is also the existing wall that we saved. The setback of this is 1'4" back. So that creates a little bit of an issue with our roof lines. Our roof rafters are gonna come, they're gonna stop about right here. It creates a ceiling height situation here. So what we ended up having to do is we're gonna drop this ceiling height down as much as we can, and the rest of it we're gonna have a slope. Unfortunately, we couldn't have a straight 9-foot ceiling here, but it is what it is. It's really hard to work with existing stuff. We would have much rather have done new construction, with the linkage fee being about $30,000. Basically, this slope is our cost for saving $30,000. So would you save $30,000 on your project and have a little bit of a slope in the front bedroom and front bathroom? Comment in the description. Is it worth it? I think it is, but maybe some of you guys think it's not.
Okay, you can see behind me, it's blocked off, but behind Sam, we have an opening. This is called a shear wall. The shear walls are put in for structural support against earthquakes and wind. So when the house moves around, these shear walls keep the house steady. Where we put the shear walls and where we don't put them is based on the structural engineer plans. He does the calculations and tells us, hey, you need OSB over here, not over there, over here, not over there. And we follow that from our plans. The reason we have OSB on the walls and plywood on the floors is because that's what our plans call for. And OSB is just pieces of wood that have been glued and compressed together that gives it a strong structural support for houses.
Nothing beats a solid piece of wood, right, Eddie?
Nothing.
So let's talk about some scheduling issues. We've learned that scheduling and finding a subcontract that's reliable was very hard. One of our subcontractors always tends to be on time, and that's our videographer, but everyone else doesn't. So it's really hard to schedule everything: inspections, lumber arriving, materials arriving, laborers arriving, the subs arriving. It's really, really hard to schedule everything. Also, on top of all that, not having a general idea of the progression of a project and a build is creating a lot of problems for us, but we're learning as we go. So we faced a lot of problems. You know, we got everything set up yesterday to shoot. We got the intro shot, and then the subcontractors for the framing didn't show up yesterday. They showed up today. They're getting the ceiling joists put in, but we weren't able to shoot everything that we wanted to shoot, so we had to come back today. It also doesn't help that I don't know why, but this property is in the sunniest spot in all of Southern California. You can see throughout the videos, we end up getting sweatier and sweatier, especially Eddie, who wears a first sweater naturally built in, but it's hot. It's really, really hot. Having filming gear overheating, people sweating, it's a lot of moving parts. You don't see that all behind the scenes stuff, but if you follow us on Instagram, we'll be posting more behind the scenes and some stories so you guys can follow along the progression. That'll be more up to date with what's going on, a little bit more raw. So if you guys want to follow us, down in the description below, I'll put in our Instagram link. SEFSU. We haven't told you guys, but that stands for Sam and Eddie fixing stuff up.
Something like that. Something really close to that.
Something more closer to violating OSHA regulations. We're gonna show you guys a clip of something that we did that was probably not the smartest idea. You gotta do things that you gotta do. And me being the type of person that I am, I tend to say, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do it. And we made a decision that was probably not the smartest decision. And you'll see how it ended up. This tree was kind of leaning. I don't know what exactly this tree is called, but basically it blooms once every 10 years. It goes up like 30, 40 feet, and then it'll die out and fall over. This tree, bush, whatever you want to call it, started blooming around the time that we closed escrow. So maybe it's significant of our project booming and coming up. Maybe it's not, but we had to cut it down because our neighbors were a little bit worried about it falling on their house because it was leaning towards their house, and we don't want to deal with any liability except the liability of our health and well-being, right?
Yeah.
Because nothing's more important than money. This video has come to a wrap. Unfortunately, I think I told you guys we're gonna talk about pricing at the end of this video, but we're not able to talk about pricing. We like to give you guys a full scope of everything, labor, material, and unfortunately, as of right now, we don't have all that. We have all of our materials except for the hardware for the ceiling joists and roof rafters. That could end up being $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. We have no idea. It could end up being $200. But when we give you guys a price for the cost of everything, we want to have it all inclusive and make sure that every single nail and screw is calculated in that. So we're gonna do that in next week's video. So subscribe down below, comment, hit the notification bell, because next week you'll get exact numbers, and maybe Eddie, we can break it down by subfloor, walls, and
We'll try to put it in a nice organized fashion of how we got to this point from our last video. I think we talked about the plumbing, pricing. Now we'll talk about how much the insulation, the floors, the framing, and all the way up to the roof rafters and the roof cost us.
If you're finding these videos informative and there are things that you want more information on, comment down below and let us know. If you like these videos and you found them to be valuable to you, share them, please. We're trying to get as many people as we can to know about this. For us, starting with this project was very rough. There wasn't much information out there, and we weren't able to find any content that showed us from beginning to end all the problems and tribulations. Everything is like a sugar-coated, informative type thing where you don't really get the raw information and the pricing and the cost of everything. So we're trying to do that for you guys. If you guys can help make that easier for us, because this content takes a lot of time for us and a lot of money as well. If you guys can share this content, as long as it's valuable to you and you find it to be great content, please share it. We really, really do appreciate it. I think we're about 50 subs now. We're about like 5-6 videos in. We're about 50 subs. So we appreciate every single one of you guys. Let's try to get to 100 subscribers.